I'm not talking about what they might become. I'm talking about at the age of 20, who has the best game, who is the best ever in the NBA. It is Luka Doncic. He's almost giving you a 30-point triple-double for a winning team. They're winning a lot
in the Western
in the Western Conference for a team that's winning like twice as much as they're losing. He's almost giving you a triple-double with 30 points. He's 20 years old. Now, look, he's not a great shooter yet, but he ain't scared to shoot. And he can shoot it well enough, better than Magic, for example, at the same age, or LeBron from outside at the same age. Luka Doncic, what you're seeing right now, you must understand, this is better than we've ever seen a player play at that age, ever.
Ever since Luka Doncic was drafted 3rd overall back in 2018, it's been apparent that he's not like other NBA players at his age. Being one of the best all-around players in the entire league, and even finding himself in MVP discussions at certain points throughout the season. In just his 2nd season, by the way. He's currently 6th in the league in scoring, and 4th in the league in assists. It's already clear that he has a lot of potential in the league, being that he's already doing this at just 21 years old in his 2nd season. Did I mention that? I don't know. And being an extremely versatile 6'7" to 6'8" player has a lot to do with this, as he also has that added size advantage, while being just an extremely skilled player overall. And he's also the only NBA player in history to make me legitimately feel bad about myself while watching him, because we are both almost the same age, give or take a few months. So with all that being said, how good can he actually be in the league? Well, today we're going to be talking about some of his strengths and how well they translate towards the direction the league is going in, some of his weaknesses, and we're going to be discussing why I believe he has the potential to become one of the greatest players of all time. But before we begin, if you're new here, I'm Double D. I'm a huge basketball fan and I make NBA videos here on YouTube. So if you're also an NBA fan, or just a basketball fan in general, feel free to hit the sub button and click the bell to be notified when I upload more videos just like this one. Alright, let's get into the video. So before we start, I just wanted to say that Rusty Buckets has already made a video sort of on this topic, but he talked about multiple young guys in that video and therefore couldn't really go into too much detail on it. But I'll be going into more detail on Luka's side of things in this video. You can click on his video on the screen, and I'll also leave a link in the description. So if you're unaware, Luka Doncic has been a great player since before he even made it to the league. He started playing professionally in the Euroleague for Real Madrid when he was just 16 years old, and just 2 seasons later, he would go on to average 16 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 4.3 assists, and became the youngest player ever to win EuroLeague MVP at just 19 years old. And was also actually selected to the EuroLeague All-Decade team for 2010 to 2019. He would go on to get drafted 3rd overall by the Atlanta Hawks in the 2018 draft, and would be traded to Dallas in return for Trae Young. But it became very clear that Luka was not like every other rookie, when he became the first teenager in NBA history to record a 30-point triple-double and the youngest player ever to record multiple triple-doubles in the same season. In his rookie year, he would end up averaging 21.2 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 6 assists, and shot 42.7% from the field and 32.7% from 3. He would obviously go on to win Rookie of the Year almost unanimously, as he would get 98 out of the 100 possible first place votes, with the other 2 going to Trae Young. But this season, Luka is truly putting the world on notice of what he can actually do and why he may end up being the league's best player for years to come. In just his 2nd season in the league, Luka is putting up 28.7 points, almost 29 points, 8 rebounds, 9.3 assists, and he's shooting 46.1% from the field overall and 31.8% from 3. Now, his 3-point percentage might look bad at first, but when you actually look further into the types of shots that he's taking, which are mostly step backs off the dribble and just probably some of the most ridiculous shots that we've ever seen from a player his size, you can start to see where his 3-point percentage takes a hit. But that can be improved along with the shot selection, but that's really one of the only weaknesses in this game, and we'll go into more detail on that later. But one thing to keep in mind with Luka is the fact that he's literally just so young doing this. I probably still have a tweet somewhere that I'll put here if I can find it, and it was, I think, during the game against the Lakers earlier this season. Yeah, November 1st, Luka against the Lakers scored 31 points, 13 rebounds, and 15 assists. Also to keep in mind, he got hit in the head late in the fourth quarter of this game, would not leave the game despite clearly being dazed for a bit, and would actually need 3 stitches after the game. And even though they lost this game, it was at that moment that I realized that this is most likely the league's next superstar in the making. He would go on to receive his first All-Star selection of many, I'm sure, and like I said before, he was even in some MVP conversations earlier this season. And so being that he's only 21 years old doing all this, and already being a borderline top 10 player in the league, in my opinion it wouldn't be that far-fetched to make the argument that he could end up being a top 10 player of all time. But like anything, there are a lot of positives to Luka's game, and that comes with some negatives, so let's go over the biggest ones. So while Luka is probably the best player we've ever seen at his age, he also has some weaknesses in his game that could be preventing him from reaching his full potential. We'll start with the usage rating. Luka this season is posting a 35.8% usage rate, which is actually, believe it or not, the same as James Harden's. And while having a high usage rate isn't necessarily bad in his case, it is leading to him carrying most of the offense, which is affecting some of his other stats. The most obvious one being that he's currently averaging 4 turnovers a game. But again, the higher usage and being the primary ball handler and playmaker will usually do that to your turnover ratio, unless your name is Chris Paul. And so that's usually to be expected. But the next two are the bigger problems and things that actually piss me off watching him sometimes. I mentioned this earlier, but Luka has been taking some of the toughest shots all season when he doesn't necessarily need to be. This season, Luka is shooting 34% on step-back threes overall and 31% on all threes. The part that's bringing his percentage down is the fact that he's actually shooting just 26% on normal three-pointers. Luka is just not a good catch-and-shoot player whatsoever. He does most of his damage around the rim as he shoots 43% on driving floaters on 134 attempts and 61% on layups. It's clear that driving is his main strength as that's how he scores a lot of his points, and it's how he sets up his teammates for assists like we see here. And so the key would probably to either work on his three-pointer, the types of shots he takes, or to just stop shooting as many, because he currently shoots almost 8 threes a game. The last problem I have, and what's probably the biggest issue I have with him, is the fact that he does not move off the ball. Like, at all. And if you know me, then you know that this is also the main problem I have with James Harden. And this is for 2 reasons. 1, the offense is never going to be as efficient as it could be, and 2, depending on how high your usage rating actually is, it can actually end up hurting your team more than helping it. Because with one guy dribbling the ball so much, you can literally have players going multiple possessions in a row without even touching the ball, let alone shooting it. And so you're almost never going to find a rhythm in a system like that. Now, part of this isn't necessarily Luka's fault. Given that he's the best playmaker on the roster by a long shot, it makes sense having him handling the ball so much. But while he is pretty difficult to guard, this is one thing that can make the Mavericks team as a whole easier to guard. With Luka having the 8th highest usage rating in NBA history this season, by the way, yes, 8th. This means that teams for the most part only have to pay attention to him, and that means that they can all lock in on him because they know that he's going to be handling the ball most of the time. Now, I feel like the best solution that Dallas can come up with here is simply going after another decent playmaking guard. Because as it stands right now, the second best playmaker for Dallas might be Delon Wright. Now, I said earlier that part of his problem is his three-point shooting, and while he does take bad shots sometimes, another reason is just the fact that he's creating his own shot most of the time. And so, your efficiency is naturally just going to take a hit from that, especially if you're shooting a lot of jumpers and three-pointers off the dribble like he does. But it's not really something that I'm too concerned about because he's only 21 years old in his 2nd season, and so he and the Mavericks have a lot of time to correct this problem or at least try to lessen it. Okay, so that's essentially Luka as a player, and given that I just explained that he is, once again, in his 2nd season, he's only going to be going up from here. He's already a borderline top 10 player in the league to most people. He was in the MVP conversation at one point earlier this season, and he's probably one of the best playmakers that I've ever seen in my life. Really. And so you could easily make the argument that he'll end up being one of the greatest players of all time. Because once him and the Mavs can make those adjustments and they start winning a lot more games, that team is gonna be a very scary thing. And given what he's already doing right now, he's very easily on pace to become the second player in history to record 30,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, and 10,000 assists, after LeBron James does it sometime in the next few years. And if the Mavericks start winning more games and being at the top of the conference more often, that's going to translate to possible finals appearances, championships, MVPs, and other personal accolades that would push him up the all-time list. And given that he already has an insanely high usage rating and they're still making the playoffs in the West, where it's already competitive and this season is even more competitive than recent years, I really don't see anything stopping them if they were to make those adjustments. And this is why I believe he'll end up being one of the greatest players ever by the time he retires. Because, like I said in my video about Bronny, he has all the skills to be in that conversation. He just needs the chance to show you that he can bring you those wins. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit like if you did, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.